This is the Mamiya M645
review. This camera is unique because of the film format that it shoots. The camera shoots a 6cm by 4.5. That's 3 times larger than the traditional full-frame 35mm film camera or even digital camera. Due to the size of the negative, the relative size of the film grain is much smaller. That allows for improvements in image quality, typically in regards to the sharpness of the image. The reason I wanted to get this camera was for 2 reasons. One, I've been feeling pretty uninspired with digital photography and photography in general, and one way to fill that hole in my life was with money to buy more things. Another reason I bought this camera was because I like how it slows me down. I will talk about it a little bit more, but the viewfinder, the functionality, the sounds, how you have to focus, the exposure, getting the exposure, everything leads to a much more enjoyable photography experience for me. I know it may not be for everybody, but if I'm talking about these things that may interest you and these are things that you care about, this may be the best beginner medium format film camera for you. Build quality and aesthetics.
Let me get the camera here.
So this is the camera itself. Aesthetics of the camera are subjective matter. Personally, I believe this is one of the prettier film cameras. I like it a lot. The viewfinder is one of the most enjoyable parts about this camera. I will try to show you some sort of simulation of what it looks like. But the fact that you can look down this viewfinder, see the whole image at once, compose by looking at a glass plane of the image is really enjoyable. I find when you look through the viewfinder of a camera, you have to move your eye around, and looking at the whole composition is kind of difficult that way. Another thing I like about this camera, due to the sort of immense weight of it, it feels reassuring. If I was to be mugged, I can throw this camera at them and hopefully knock them out. Another thing about this camera, when talking about the build quality and aesthetics and all that, I have to mention the sounds that this camera makes. Feel and ergonomics. Every frame that I take with this camera, since I have to be so slow and meticulous, is just more meaningful to me. I am able to focus more on the image, on what I want to do with the image and how I can make it better, and if I got the focus right, if I got the exposure right. I find myself metering much more accurately just because I have to. Or not because I have to, just because I'm metering on my own now. Focusing and usability of the camera. First off, the shutter speeds, this is not the 100S model. So the top shutter speed is 1/500th of a second. Which isn't a problem for me. Another issue I've been finding with this camera, especially when shooting night, is it's hard to focus. I don't have a split prism. It's just a lighter patch in the middle where you just have to focus by your eye. It's kind of difficult. And I pride myself to be pretty good in manual focus. I shoot weddings in manual focus. But this camera is not easy. It really is difficult. Though, with that being said, this ground glass, you are able to replace it and get something that might be a little bit easier for you to focus with. Just one last point about the focusing of this camera is that there is a focus aid on this waist level viewfinder. There is a silver tab right here, and if you push it inwards to the left, this focusing lens appears, and it does help focusing. The image quality coming out of this camera is stellar. I will show you some sample images. I have one image that I scanned at about 100 megapixels, just under I suppose, and you can see it's still resolving near that much detail. Another potential pain with this camera is if you're a new shooter, you will have to meter with an external meter, whether that be your phone, another camera, or a dedicated piece of hardware to do so. Specifically with this viewfinder, there are viewfinders that you can purchase with this camera that are actually cheaper to purchase. Some general pros to using this camera are it's relatively inexpensive, especially for a medium format camera. Purchase this body with this 80mm Secor 2.8 lens for I think $300, and then with shipping it was about $340 because it did come from Japan. Another pro is it's modular, so if you end up not liking this viewfinder, you can replace it with something more traditional like an eye-level viewfinder, one with a meter, one that doesn't. There's a sports finder. There's a lot of options, and there's also a lot of great lenses. Any review I look up of any lens with this camera, everybody boasts about its sharpness. So you're investing into a system that you can grow in. So if this becomes a camera that you adore and have for many years, you can get quite the collection of gear for it and be happy with it. Some cons of shooting this camera. If you're new to shooting medium format, you may or may not realize that the film is expensive. So you're looking at it quite a cost per shot, you know. Another con is the viewfinder, this viewfinder. Other ones that aren't waist level won't have this problem. This is a problem inherent to any waist level viewfinder, is that you get a reversed image. So if you move the camera right, the camera goes left, which isn't a big deal. My brain got used to that pretty quickly. The harder part is getting the tilt of the camera. For some reason, for me and most people that use this camera, it does begin to get a little difficult. Another con is when you're shooting 120 format, you can't just send this off to Walmart or Walgreens, CVS, any of those quick dirty drugstore, I say dirty because they suck, development places. You're gonna have to either develop at home or send it off to a specialized lab, or if you're lucky enough to live in a location, which I do not, that has a lab, you can drop it off there. And another con, I know I mentioned it earlier as a good thing, but the camera is heavy. It will strain your neck. When I shoot this camera, I like to wear collared shirts or a hoodie, just so there's a little bit of a buffer, so it doesn't hurt my neck as much. Oh, and speaking of that, straps. If your camera does not come with these little lug adapters, they're kind of a pain to find. I had to find mine on Amazon, and it took absolutely forever for it to come. I will try to link that. I will try to link that in the description down below. So if you're having issues with that, you can find these and put a strap on your camera. Ooh, this is awkward. You can see my timeline. I forgot to record a closer because I'm no good at this YouTube thing. With that being said, you should subscribe because I am so shameless. Also because all the shots in this video were taken on the Fuji Pro 400H film stock, and if you want to join me for a photo walk, it could be fun, I guess. That's my next video. I plan to post more regularly, so bye now. Sorry.